Randy Neugebauer joining us on the horn. Randy, sound like you got a little bit of
Uh-oh.
I don't know if you're got allergies going on, a little puny, hacking a little bit. What's going on there?
Well, I don't know, but I've got my lemon tea here next to me, and I'm hopeful that I'll have my voice will stay with me during the rest of the day. I've got a pretty busy day. I had to give some speeches towards the end of last week, and that was a little bit of a struggle. So I don't know if it's a cold or hay fever or what, but anyway, it's what I have.
I needed to see if you could just settle the rumor. I heard that you kind of got under the weather. You were standing on the road hitchhiking, trying to get a ride with Hillary and Scoob, and she passed you by. Is this true? Can you confirm or deny this allegation?
She would stop and pick you up.
I couldn't tell for sure because she went by so fast. It was hard to tell who it was.
All right. Okay. What's going on? What's going on this week? What you working on, man?
Oh, of course, this is tax week. April 15th is I guess that's on Wednesday.
Don't remind us.
I know. So we're doing some things on the floor on taxes this week. Two things that are interest to people in the 19th District. One is the permanent repeal of the death tax. We've extended it in the past, and we've lowered some of the tax rates, but this would eliminate, when you die, you get taxed. Another thing, too, Texas does not have a income tax. In other states, we have a sales tax. In other states that have a income tax, they can deduct that tax. So in Texas, we've always said to be, on even keel with others, that we should be able to deduct our sales tax. And that's permanent, making permanent policy, being able to deduct sales tax is up. Then there's a lot of discussion about Iran going on. In fact, there's a classified briefing later on this afternoon that I'm hopeful to be able to attend to kind of give an update on where we are with the Iran nuclear talks and get a better perspective on that. I'll be managing some bills on the floor later on this afternoon that have to do with, providing some regulatory relief for some of our community banks, something that's very much needed. So there's a lot of things going on in D.C. right now.
Yeah. As far as the Iran nuclear deal, my personal perception is that really nobody knows nothing about nothing, and it's just all a bunch of conjecture at this point. And I think as long as this is carried on, that it just confirms that we kind of walked into this, and I don't think you can be prepared for something like this. I think it's just like everything's a shot from the hip. Is that the way it really is?
Well, I think certainly, we need a little bit more detail. I think what the administration and everybody's been talking is from the concept of framework. Okay, so we've heard what the framework is, but, I was a home builder, and so we had a set of plans, and sometimes we'd draw, conceptual drawing, but then we'd have to draw up the plans that we could actually build a house from. And I think where we are now with the Iranian situation is, okay, Mr. President, show us the plans, show us the agreement, show us the provisions of that, show us that if the Iranians don't do these certain things, what the consequences are. And I don't think we have that, Tom, and I think that's the point you're making.
Well,
I'm hopeful that at some point in time we know more detail about it.
True story. When I built a house back in 2003, I upset my contractor because I needed to leave his subcontractors alone, and I didn't know what I was talking about. Yet when I pointed out the fact that the framers had framed part of the house backwards, that didn't seem to be okay either. So there you have the framework. Randy Neugebauer will be back. Good morning. Right now, 7:48, Lubbock's First News. Tom Collins and Laura Mack on the phone with us. Congressman Randy Neugebauer, District 19. Excuse me.
All right.
Rubbing off on me. Hey, Randy, just wanted to ask you a question on a semi-unrelated but related note. Your son, Toby Neugebauer, co-founder of Quantum Energy Partners Houston, it's based their private equity firm, It's, I guess, rumored that he's supporting a super PAC or one of the donors and helping raise funds for a super PAC that is supporting Senator Ted Cruz. Over the weekend, the speculation was about $31 million they raked in. Can you comment on that?
Well, Toby supported Ted for his senatorial campaign, and I think he's decided that he's going to get involved in his presidential campaign, and that's Toby's business. I'm personally not going to get involved in the primary for president, but certainly will be whoever our candidate is once our nominee is made. I'll be very involved in that.
Okay. Well, thanks for the comment on that. Speaking of appropriations, there is a bill, I guess, festering, the act of appropriation. What's going on?
Well, after we do our budget, we're about to hopefully finish up our budget this week. What we need to do now is the Senate pass their budget, the House pass their budget. We need to get those together and make them the same, and then we'll have a budget resolution for both the House and Senate appropriation committees to work off of. And so then now the appropriating committees will start writing our spending bills over the next few months, and that'll determine, how each of the departments of government can spend their money. And that's an important part because that's an area where, for example, we've been slowly defunding, for example, EPA because of EPA's overreach in regulations. We reduced the IRS budget. So this is where we have an opportunity to sharpen our pencil and also do a little bit of policy at the same time.
Okay, realistically speaking, what's the trickle down when you defund something? Okay, let's say that the IRS gets defunded. Do you get to pick and choose how they implement their budget to put boundaries on, certain types of execution? I mean, as far as inside their agency?
To an extent we can, Tom, depending on the language that's put in there. For example, if there's a particular policy that the IRS says that they're going to implement, we can say that no funds can be used to implement that particular policy by the Department of Treasury. So we can do. Now, you have to understand, we can only do that if these appropriation bills are signed by the President of the United States. So when sometimes we do those, in the House, and the House version will include that, but maybe in the Senate version could include that. But if the President, for example, were to veto that bill, then we would be left then to go back to like a CR. And that's the reason you've heard me say I don't like the CRs is because a lot of that policy where we could limit some of these agencies is not included in the CRs.
So realistically, excuse me, the CR is just kind of sidestepping the issue if it does not get signed off on, and I guess if the president vetoes a bill, and you can't override the veto, but if there was a presidential veto on these bills, what are the possibilities of actually overriding them at this point?
Well, I think it depends on what bill it is. The Senate, we only have 54 senators in the Senate, and so it would take 66 senators or 2/3 to do that. So obviously we don't have the numbers in the Senate to do that unless it's some policy that the Democrats agree with us on. And for example, the Iranian situation has picked up quite a bit of support on the Senate side from some Democrats over there. So if we were to send a bill over to, limiting the president's Iranian deal, and he tried to veto that bill, there's a possibility that we could override that veto. Vetoes are very hard to override.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Collins and Mack on Lubbock's First News, joined by Randy Neugebauer. A little bit under the weather today. You thinking it's cold or allergies, man?
Man, I can't tell. I've never had my eyes water as much as I have with this, so it makes me kind of think like allergy. Everything's blooming here in D.C. The cherry blossoms are blooming. The trees are all blooming, so it certainly could be that.
They're beautiful but deadly, aren't they?
Yes, they are. They are. Right now, they are beautiful. Dan and I got to Washington yesterday, and as we were coming in from the airport, see them there is really, really beautiful. They're really just starting to peak this week.
Okay, in the 2016 presidential election, you got, Ted Cruz is out of the box. You've got Hillary made her announcement yesterday.
Rand Paul got in.
Yeah, Rand Paul's in. And both of those, Rand Paul and Ted, those guys they're pretty smooth talkers. They both have the gift of gab. They can speak extemporaneously. But a lot of people always focus on extemporaneous speaking. But if you're not an extemporaneous thinker, you can't speak extemporaneously. Now, today it's expected
Marco
Rubio is going to throw his hat into the ring, as well as some others. So very soon, do you think that, now that it's really moving along, that the field for the Republican side of the ballot, the competition for that's going to heat up and flourish very quickly? And, before they were saying, 21 people may announce. I don't think it's going to go that far, do you?
I don't either. We're going to have all of the senators in, or at least 3 of the senators in, and we'll have to see as the governors, guys like Scott Walker and some of the others, Mike Pence, if they decide to get in, Chris Christie. But I would think in the next 30 days, everybody that's going to get in is going to get in, because if you're going to have to start raising money, and it's going to take money in this presidential race.
Hey, Congressman, thanks for joining us this morning. Hope you get feeling better.
Thank you, and y'all have a great week.
You too.